So this is going to sound all kinds of crazy, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that my body is not from here. I don't really mean that I think I'm like an alien from a different world or whatever. It's more like my body is not from a concrete jungle. My body is not from ultra processed foods. Like, my body is not from the current reality that all human bodies are learning, and I think it's killing me. Now, I don't eat ultra processed foods. I haven't for a very, very long time. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't eat cigarettes, but I started falling down this rabbit hole of like my genetics. Now, for a little bit of context, I'm a good old half breed of an Irish traveler. Meaning my dad's an Irish traveler, my mom is not. And for those of you that are watching this from America, it doesn't mean an Irish person that travels around. We're like an indigenous ethnic minority to like Ireland, Scotland, Great Britain, England, whatever. And we've been around long enough that they don't really know where we came from, although they like to make up plenty of stories of where we came from. Well, we came from the Great Famine, we came from this, we came from that, whatever. What we do know is that our genetics are different, and that because we're a really isolated culture, like a small culture, like in theory there's only like 80,000 of us that exist. In the US there's about 10,000 of us. Most of you don't know we exist, and if you do, it's dripping with like racial shit that people put online about us. I only bring that up because it means that because my mom's genes are the only like genetic refresh that I got, that I have an insight into, let's say, older genetics. And that insight is I have a huge amount of genetic mutations that are weird. Just to name a few. Now, I laugh at people. I don't laugh at people who have MTHFR, but I laugh at MTHFR mutation. I wish that's all I was dealing with, right? No, I have a genetic mutation that gives me scurvy because I have mutations in my SVT pathways in my gut that uptakes ascorbic acid. I have a genetic mutation of primary carnitine. I never say it right. Carnitine. There it is. I have carnitine wasting deficiency, meaning like I just piss out carnitine. It's a non-essential amino acid, but it's like, meaning your body can make it, but like my body doesn't, and I have a hard time absorbing it, and I need that. I need it in my body, believe me. I have a genetic mutation that makes it hard for me to uptake retinol, which is vitamin A. I have a genetic mutation that makes it hard for B12 to go into my cells, and it's not pernicious anemia. It's a whole nother ballgame, you know? Like, and I carry huge amounts of like weird genetic mutations like galactosemia, meaning like in my culture, 1 out of every 400 people are born like allergic to milk in a weird way. Like, we're allergic to the lactose inside of the milk. And it can make you like die. It's like, I wish that these people just had lactose intolerance, but it's no like you go septic and your body shuts down, right? What type of curse is that, by the way, where like you breastfeed your baby and it dies? But I'm not here to necessarily talk about the weird that is my existence, and how hard it has been to like uncover all this stuff. I even have a genetic mutation that means that I can't uptake vitamin K1 or K2 very well, which is wild because I eat a lot of leafy greens and a lot of meat. But I bring it all up because I started thinking about it from like, I don't know, it just clicked in my head when I'm like, I am not from this planet. I swear to God. Like, how, like, it's overwhelming. And if any like any geneticist wants to like fuck around with my genes and look at the weirdness, feel free to get a hold of me. But it's been really weird. It's been a really weird concept, and it just popped in my head that I'm like, I don't know. Nobody lives with this many mutations, right? Like, and so I started thinking about it, and I got a hold of the concept forever ago that like back to the MTHFR is actually like a riboflavin deficiency. I'm not gonna dig deep into that, but look into it and how like if I'm eating riboflavin rich foods, I don't have any problems with folate. I don't have any problems with that, right? It's the one thing that, but I started thinking, well, if it's a riboflavin deficiency, which is primarily found in like meat, milk, eggs, yogurt, All these things that the system has systematically tried to tell us are poison. Oh, you shouldn't eat dairy. You shouldn't eat red meat. You shouldn't eat this. You shouldn't eat that. You look at that, you wonder how many people are deficient in this because of how the world has changed, right? So I was like, wow. And that like lit a fire in my neurons to consider, what if my mutations aren't mutations so much as they were the way my ancestors' bodies were adapting to the life they were living. Like, what if we ate so many leafy greens that we had to do something to protect against too much vitamin K, because that'll make you have blood clots and die, right? What if we ate huge amounts of meat and you don't want too much carnitine? Said it right that time. You don't want too much carnitine in your body, so we started pissing it out. What if we lived off of huge amounts of like seal fat, which had tons of retinol in it? So we don't want too much vitamin A because that's toxic, so we have a mutation that blocks it. What if we ate tons of meat but had no real access to a lot of vitamin C rich foods, so we needed to get our ascorbic acid through our GLUT or GLUT pathways, which is like you can take ascorbic acid up through your glucose pathways in your gut versus your sodium pathways. And so we relied on that. And because we know that like carbohydrates like are prioritized through that pathway, you wouldn't be eating a lot of those if you were just eating meat. Think about the Inuit people. They don't get scurvy and they live off of meat, which means that they're pretty much taking it up through their GLUT pathways versus their SVT pathways. Because there is vitamin C in meat. I'm not going to jump into it too deeply, but there is. It's just a preformed variety, right? But anyhow, so I'm like, I'm not from here. My body is not from here. My body on a genetic level was not meant for this time and place. But I don't think it's just like I'm some special fucking unicorn. I don't even think it's about my culture. I think that this is probably applying to most humans. And if you pair that with the fact that when you're like deeply disconnected from the land and you're like a fucking mole person and you're not getting any sun on your body to like allow ATP to happen because you're kind of like a plant, you need sun, even though you're told now that the sun is dangerous, right? Or the fact that like we never touch the bare ground, we're not grounding, and they try to say like, oh, grounding is pseudoscience. I'm like, what? That's basic electricity. Like that's the basic like science for like electrical work. You better hope your house is grounded. Right, like all this type of stuff where we're like deeply disconnected, I also believe comes back to like why we're so sick, but also on a genetic level. So you don't have to be from some like super rare weird little culture for this to apply. Like, where were your ancestors from? You might have a bunch of different places, right? Humans tend to intermingle with other humans, so we're never exactly what we think we are unless we live in a really isolated culture. But like, what if that's why we're sick, right? Like, and it's so crazy because just as a personal example, I started having like crazy histamine intolerance issues, and I found the root cause. But I had started eating like animal based, which is kind of like adjacent to carnivore, where it's just like a lot of meat, but like also like fruit and like squash, honey, milk, carbohydrates as well, because every cell in your body needs glucose, no matter what anybody tells you. Um, and it was crazy because I wasn't doing well, but I had done a bunch of, I'd done an organic acids test on my urine to see what was happening, and my methathione and my carnitine levels were really low. And I'm like, oh, well, I went down a bunch of rabbit holes with my genetics, paying attention to like, it was B12. Oh, it's fucking B12. Even if my levels are high, I'm not absorbing it right. Hear me out. I was eating a ton of meat, and for those of you who don't know that, which is probably like 99% of you, carnitine is stored in your muscles. It's like a part of your fat metabolism. That's why people, if they do hear about it, they're like, oh, it helps you lose weight. I mean, it helps you burn fat for energy and get the fat into your cells, like as part of the ATP function, right? But that means if you're eating a lot of meat, you should have a ton of carnitine in your body, right? It's actually how I came across it. Came across a lot of it. Like, it was crazy because like I was eating huge amounts of meat and I was barely in the like low normal range, right? But now my free levels were pretty low. And so it just really made me think about like how my entire life I have like really loved meat. Like it's really important to me. I mean, I grew up hunting and stuff, but also like my favorite smell in the world, and a bunch of you are about to freak the fuck out. Some of you who hunt will relate. My favorite smell in the world is like warm blood from like a fresh deer kill. Don't, it just always has been. It makes my mouth water, and people are gonna be like, "There's demons in you," which is funny because y'all like the smell of a steak cooking, right? That's blood. That's flesh cooking, so you can like enjoy the smell of searing flesh, but not fresh blood. But all that stuff aside, I don't think it's just that I happen to like that smell. I think my body was giving me a message, right? It's like, oh my god, you need this so bad, right? Because like I would have had this deficiency my whole life, and there are different levels of deficiency, but because it didn't present like when I was a baby, like my muscles were still developing, right? Because I'm still uptaking a little bit. And I grew up eating a lot of meat. You know, we weren't well off by any means, and my dad is an amazing hunter. So it's like the one thing we did have was meat, right? And so I probably like edged it, right? But I think about that. I think about that on top of how often we are shamed for those cravings, right? Everyone's like, oh, I'm a sugar addict. I'm like, you mean every cell in your body runs on glucose and you need carbohydrates? So maybe you should eat some squash instead of a candy bar, but your body's telling you what it needs. It just doesn't know what to ask for if you've been eating nothing but junk your whole life, right? Or people are like, oh, I really love meat, but I think I should be a vegan because it's healthier for me. I'm like, are you sure? Because your body's not asking you for that. Somebody's telling you that, right? And I know that every body is different, and like my existence proves that, right? But I don't know. I think about that deeply. I think about that deeply when I'm like, my body is not from here, and the impacts that has on our health. And I just felt like I should share, and it's overwhelming because when I talk in like my live Q&As that all my followers, you know, join every day, I'm always like, this mutation, this mutation. I sound broken. Right, I do, and I feel it sometimes too, you know, but like I also feel really empowered by how much I've discovered, right? Because a normal doctor would just tell me that I'm on my period and send me on my way. Right, he wouldn't. You know, and it's lonely sometimes because I do live in like a really rural area, and like even if I could see a primary care physician, I'd be 6 months out, and they'd treat me like I was, you know, a hysterical woman, versus being like what am I gonna do? Look this guy in the face and be like, oh, I had a full genetic sequencing done, and I've been digging through like all of my SNPs, and I've been like cross-referencing it to like deficiencies that I have by labs that I'm running myself. He's going to be like, okay, have you tried Prozac? Right, and so I feel alone in it, but I also feel empowered by it, and I don't think that everybody is going to be dealing with this level of weirdness that I do, but I think that everybody is sick from the disconnection, you know. And it's not like I'm the first to ever talk about that, like we're not meant to live off of processed food or in concrete jungles or in like houses that are surrounded by electrical wires and all this type of stuff, you know. But like I don't know, I just felt like it was really important to talk about from the stance of my genetics are different in that way, right? Like, as far as I can tell, I'm the first generation in my dad's family to be born outside of our culture, like, ever. Like, ever. You know? And it's really sad because the cousins that I have that are also born outside of the culture, like, they're really, I don't have very many. Our family has died off. And they are pretty much gone. In the way that, like, the few that we have left are like they have like lost their minds and they live on the street homeless, like stab you with a cane knife type of shit, you know. Like, and it's sad because I know from my own self what's wrong with them, but we can't approach, right? And I don't have the ability to save them, if that makes sense. So I work hard to save myself, you know, because the things that I live with, if I don't keep on top of them, it would be really easy for me to end up homeless again and like totally insane, right? You know, because if you don't have, and eventually, like, if you don't have enough carnitine in your body, you will like be fucked up in the brain. Same with like B12 and all that type of stuff. Like, but I just felt like I don't know, I might be like a living example of what happens when society pushes us away from connecting with the land. And don't get it twisted. The food you eat is a direct representation of the land. So when you eat ultra processed food, which they've lied to you and told you that if you're poor, that's all you can afford to eat. And as a person who's on food stamps for a very long time, that's bullshit. I always had more food that lasted longer when I bought like real food in bulk when I could and saved it up, right? Um, times are harder and things like that. But they tell you this. They tell you that you have to eat ultra processed foods. They tell you that like you don't have time to make your own food as you scroll on Facebook or whatever for hours a day added up, right? They tell you that you don't have the ability to connect with nature unless you have like a bunch of money and all the perfect gear and a bunch of time to like way go out into the mountains or something like that, which is unrealistic for a lot of people, right? But like fuck, you can go sit in your yard. Or if you don't have a yard, you can go to a park or a walkway or something like that. But like we're told that there's nothing that we can do about it, and the only way that we can do something about it is if we're like uber wealthy. That's gross, but it's also dangerous, right? There's a person who like used to eat out of fucking dumpsters and like shit in buckets. like I get to say that like I understand how hard it is when you're poor, but I also think that it makes us easier to control because we're so hyper focused on just getting through the day. But I don't know, when we take that control back, even if it's just like one dietary change at a time or like 5 minutes in the morning sun at a time, you get so much more like autonomy back over yourself. A little bit at a time. So I thought it was important to share, and I thought I'd also let y'all know how fucking weird I am. Like how oddly mutated I am, and why I bring it up all the time. And I don't know, but I'm really grateful that I found it out because it impacts my kids and potential like grandchildren in the future. And like, I don't know, it impacts you too. It impacts you in a really big way. So my body is not from here, and I think I'm going to have a lot more to like say on this subject, like going forward, and just talking about it more openly, and how like it all reconnects, like it all connects, like how we exist in this world and how we don't exist anymore, and like we aren't meant for this. We aren't meant for this at all. So thanks for watching, folks. See you next time. Bye.